yeah, it's unusual what we do. But again, it's like, you know, in that world is created for you, and so you're stepping into this bubble when you're filming. Hi, I'm Keeley Hawes, and these are my absolute scenes for Enemy.
Hey, you shouldn't be here.
The series is a modern retelling of the Midwich Cuckoos, which has already been made into a film a long time ago. I don't know exactly when, in the 60s maybe. So I haven't actually seen the film, and I hadn't read the book, although it is lots of people's favourite book. And I didn't then go to the book and read it because ours is very different, and my character in the original was a man. You know, it's a story about women and women's bodies being taken over by these parasitic aliens or whatever it is that they might be. And to have a man at the centre of that now does feel very old-fashioned. So yeah, I played Dr. Susanna Zellaby, who lives in Midwich with her daughter Cassie, and she is a child psychologist. So she knows, you know, the families in the town, and she's not in town on the night of what we're calling the blackout. She's in London on a Tinder date. It's a very modern retelling. So she's on a date with this chap, and she leaves her daughter in the town, and she starts to head back to Midwich, and realises that something's very wrong, and so she can't get into the town, so she goes past the police barriers and she tries to run in, but there's a literal sort of, it's invisible, but there's something around the town, which means that anybody who tries to get in is sort of rendered helpless and they faint. And that has happened to all of the residents in the town of Midwich. We shot that scene, it had started to rain, so everybody was in a panic, and it was 4:59 when we did that take, and we were wrapping at 5. So it had been a night shoot. It's all darkness, that whole set piece. And I just had a crash mat in front of me, and I had to run up to it and just faint. And the pressure was really on at 1 minute to 5. So I think it's not great advice, but, you know, it certainly makes you pull something out of the bag when everyone's been up all night and it's raining.
Parties are invited to engage in dialogue to initiate the healing process.
There seems to be an oversight. Some of the officers involved in my wrongful conviction are missing.
I loved playing Lindsay Denton. When I started playing her in Series 2, there were questions that even Jed didn't have the answer to, you know, because I then went back in Series 3, which was a surprise. And so it was great to be part of something that sort of evolved, so I was always learning something new about her, sort of almost along with the audience, you know, and that was really thrilling. You know, you never quite knew where you were with her, but I felt very sympathetic towards her. You know, and those huge scenes are such an exciting thing to do in television, because they're not the sort of, I suppose more and more people do have longer scenes in drama now, probably because of Line of Duty. You know, people are more up for it because it works so well. But certainly at the time it was very unusual to have like a 35-page scene in the middle of a TV show. Well, the thing about those scenes and those, you know, those actual interviews, we were sort of told that you're not allowed to have big movements in a way. It's all very tense and very controlled, and it's a bit like a sort of poker face, you know, and no one wants to give anything away, and so everyone is doing very little, which is a good thing, because they're sort of half an hour takes, and the person that you end up feeling really sorry for is the boom-op, who's like this for 30 minutes at a time, which is really hard. You know, acting is the fun bit, but for the crew, you know, they're all working away, and you know, something like that. Everybody has to pull together, and everybody has to be on their game, you know, and it's really exciting. I'm being blamed for not knowing my son when you conspired and moved heaven and earth to lie to me.
I wasn't lying.
You sat there next to him in my house, time after time after time, with this great big, elaborate lie.
I told you. I said every time. I told you I wasn't his girlfriend.
And then you sat there simpering, laughing. I think the thing with It's a Sin, that was a very long scene. I think it was sort of 15 pages long. The thing about that show in general was that it was so much of it was so painful and so moving that cast, such good friends and really cared about each other, and all of them were kind of loosely based on real characters, and the writing was so good that it was all just really there for us. And again, you know, the luxury of having the entire set to use. You know, they'd created this hospital in an old disused building somewhere. And so you could walk into each room and as we were going past the rooms, you know, there were people lying in beds. And so you don't have to imagine those things because they're there and you're in that world. And that's what, you know, production did so beautifully, the design and all of that attention to detail. It was quite something. We were given a day and a half to shoot it. But I think we shot it in a day. So and everyone, all the crew were so invested. You know, you could sort of see them. They were really moved in the scenes. And I mean, again, you couldn't have guessed at the success that it was going to have because you never know. You never know. But the impact that show had, and I think that scene in particular, it just really, it's very, very difficult to be sort of so awful. You have to have sympathy and an understanding for the characters that you play. You have to have empathy. I did feel for Valerie. She was a woman of a certain time, about to lose her son, and she didn't deal with it well. But, you know, lots of people have been in touch and said, you know, that their own mothers have said, did I do enough? Having watched the show, did I, you know, it's that sort of impact that has made it so worthwhile. It's this great mix, which at the time it was, you know, and Richie says, I had the best time, you know, I had the best time. And that's what's, God, heartbreaking. He was wonderful. They all were, Lydia, Nathaniel, just everyone, Amari, and they've all gone sort of sky high with their careers, and it's so lovely. I hadn't met Callum, who played Colin, because we didn't sort of cross paths at all. And so I met him quite recently, and that was lovely. It's just, all of them are just gorgeous and super talented, and I'm thrilled to see them all flying so high.
What's this?
Oh, it's that shoe I was telling you about.
What shoe?
A shoe from this morning, I told you. It was outside the house.
Well, what's it doing on the table?
Thought I'd bring it in.
And put it there. We don't know where it's been. It could be covered in dog shit.
It's brand new, that's the whole point.
Well, if it's brand new, don't put it on the table. It's bad luck.
I hadn't worked with Rhys, but I had worked with Steve on something a long time ago, and so I knew him a little bit. But going in, and really that episode was just a three-hander, so it was just the three of us in a house for 5 days. It took that episode, it was 5 days to shoot. So it's quite an intense period of time. And when you're with the creators of the show and you're acting with the creators and the writers of the show, and it's their words, that's quite unusual. So yeah, and I really wanted to do an episode, and I just finished the Durrells, like the Friday, and they said, oh, we've got this slot, and it was the Monday, and I was like, well, that's might all be a bit much, but I'd really like to do it. And so I went in with sort of my head half in the Durrells and half going, what is this really weird, surreal kind of show about a shoe? Very odd. Yeah, it's unusual what we do. But again, it's like, you know, in that world is created for you, and so you're stepping into this bubble when you're filming, which is an amazing thing to do with your life. I feel very lucky to be able to, you know, spend my time with lovely, creative people. And they are so creative. They're a great example. You know, it's amazing what they do with that show. I mean, it just keeps coming. I don't know how many series they've done, countless series, and each one just gets better, and actors are queuing up to be part of it because it's really exciting.
Only there weren't kids.
Was a man with a shotgun?
Didn't deserve a shallow grave, did he? Did he, Alex?
No.
Sometimes it can be very intense going in and filming. It depends really on the other actor. I tend not to be too intense. You know, something like It's a Sin, it's intense enough in that 20 minutes, so it's quite nice to keep things quite light. And I don't think anything was ever tense with Phil. He's so funny. I mean, it was just, that was really the battle with everyone, in fact, and the fact that they all had these 80s look, which were just hilarious, you know, and you'd be talking about something quite serious and then just sort of actually look at someone and just go, oh my God, I don't... It's the only show I've ever been thrown off set for laughing. I was asked to leave. And that character, the character of Gene Hunt was just... It was a real pleasure. Going to work was like, this is mad, you know, and then having those crazy scenes and then spending a couple of days in every block of 2 episodes, or, you know, doing the car chases, and he's a great driver, so he would, you know, do lots of that sort of stunty stuff himself. As you move towards, you know, the ending of that, there was a lot of anticipation about the end of Ashes and the tying up and what the sort of secret was, and what the world was. You know, and there are such... The Ashes to Ashes fans and the fan base is still there. It's still really strong. People really love that show. And you know, they go on tours to still now, you know, tours to the locations and the pub, and which is really... It's just a lovely thing, you know, sort of lovely legacy of the show.
Security comes from economic prosperity, from good education, good jobs. Together, we...
That was a shock, actually. I was like, ooh, and as much of a shock to me as everybody else. I knew that I was only in a certain amount of episodes, but I didn't know the story. You know, it was all a lovely surprise to me. So I was sent the scripts and I read them, and I was like, that's great. And then the shooting of it was... We shot in a big hall with lots of essays, and I was giving the speech, and then the actual explosion was filmed somewhere completely different, in a kind of warehouse situation where we did a couple of the stunts. We did Richard running, and me being... But they basically used... There was a crash mat again behind me, and I'm there, and you actually see them outside Hamleys quite often. Someone's standing outside and they have like that, and it's sort of air. They pull something back and there's air that comes out of it, so you feel the air come towards you. So this huge amount of air just came at me, and I had to fall back, and then that was put in afterwards. It was so exciting, that whole bodyguard thing, and people still asking me if I'm dead. Not really dead. Are you dead? You're not dead. You know. And the reason people think, partly, they think that character is still alive is because in the script there was a funeral. You know, there was a big, sort of almost like a state funeral for her. She was the Home Secretary. So, and actually there wasn't the budget for it, so that scene was cut. So we didn't have a funeral, didn't see a body, and then that led to people thinking that must mean that she's still alive.